morning and welcome to the Dailies, where we keep you updated with some of the happenings on the paper. Where we're saying that one of the stories on the paper is the fact that it's already 1 year ever since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu selected his 45 cabinet, talking about the ministers. And ever since the first quarter assessment, where we see that a number of them have received cuddles, while much more are receiving knocks from Nigerians. I think very few of them actually receiving applause coming from Nigeria, the likes of Wike, where we're seeing that the FCT residents are really happy with the work he's doing, as well as the Minister of Works, who happens to be Hope Mahi, and then we're seeing Tunji Oju, the Minister of Interior, as well. He's receiving some kudos coming from Nigerians concerning some of his work, while we're saying that most of the ministers, Nigerians, are not happy with their work. So we'll look at that and many other stories as well on the paper. So do well to drop your comments, your views, as they are always welcome on the show. I'll bring the program alongside Rachel. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Welcome, Saturday
All
morning.
right, let's run through the papers, starting with the Daily Independent newspaper.
The big story on the paper: Nigerians' future mortgaged by Tinubu family and associates. This is Atiku making that statement. Attempt to pull me down may destroy PDP, Damagun warns. Wabara attacks inaugurated committees against one-party states. Businesses expect Naira to depreciate further in the third quarter of the year, a CBN survey. Constitutional review: MBA calls for inclusion of magistrates as judicial officers. Despite court order, APC sacks Benue ESCO, raises 7-man CTC. Prices of Gari tomatoes order drop in Anambra, Ebonyi, and Enugu. Rivers LG elections won't hold embattled Okocha boast. UNICEF decries diversion of supplements meant for children in Sokoto, and I just hope that the Sokoto government does something about it, that the children that are in need of these supplements really get it. You can find details on page 7. Tinubu's renewed hope agenda boosting Nigeria's economy, Bagudu is assuring us. Still on the paper, PDP crisis: Wike vows to remain in party and fight to the last, declares park and pay scheme illegal in FCT. Tinubu OK's takeover of Dalhatu Arab Specialist Hospital by federal government. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, federal government hikes international passport fees. So you can find detail of that for those who intend to get an international passport. You are aware that the price have actually gone up, so you can do well to read detail of that on page 4. Nigeria needs new mapping to address insecurity coming from surveillance. As well, we see Pengassan vows to end crunch of crude oil theft. Alleged terrorism financing: don't silence NLC, CISLAC tells the police. The big story on the paper: Tinubu family has mortgaged future of Nigerians, coming from Atiku. Says Nigeria rapidly transforming into a government of Tinubu, by Tinubu, and for Tinubu. This is redefining what democracy is. You can find detail of that on page 2. Again, Chinese firm seizes set to sell Nigerians UK properties worth $70 million award. Promises transparency in sale of the properties due to key public interests of Nigerians. Downside: no place for non-computer literate in civil service, coming from Wilson Jack. And I think this is where the civil service need to do something to make sure that all those who are on their employment scheme are being taken through this training on how they need to use the computer, because a number of them have no idea how this things operate. So I hope that the civil service have this scheme where they are working toward making sure that there is a training for all those in the Civil Service Commission. And we have a picture story. You can do well to grab the paper in more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Blueprint newspaper, prices of Gari tomatoes orders drop in Anambra, Ebonyi, and Enugu. Wike declares park and pay scheme in FCT illegal. Banks adopt strategies to meet 1.29 trillion naira recapitalization target. On sports, AFCON qualifiers: Super Eagles open camp September. How 30 unknown gunmen kidnappers were killed in Enugu. Report from ENSG: abductors hide hostages in poultry farm. Supplements meant for malnourished children sold in Sokoto, a report from UNICEF. The big story on the paper: as PDP crisis deepens, Damogun dares Clark, others vows not to give in to distractions. Inaugurate disciplinary reconciliation committee says we won't allow party to die. I will remain in the party to fight, Wike declares. You can start with the details on the front page. Federal government working on financial models for airport. Justify your huge pay, NBA charges judicial officers. NNPC report shows crude oil revenue hits 12.02 trillion naira in 2023. Unity Bank champions digital literacy innovation for youth empowerment. And we have a picture from left where we can see the group managing director, chief executive, Zenith Bank PLC, Dr. Atara, the first lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, and deputy general manager, zonal head, Zenith Bank PLC, Victoria, during the Zenith Bank GMD CEO visits to the first lady at the presidential villa. This happened yesterday in Abuja, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, food inflation reducing, we will reduce it further, coming from the finance minister. Hashtag in bad governance, CSO berate federal government over prolonged detention of protesters without charges. Still on the paper, federal government increases international passport fees. And police invitation to Ajero, more critical union gives strike notices as US-based union petition Nigerian embassy. You can read detail of that on page 5. And the big story on the paper, petrol scarcity worsened as marketers load at 780 naira to a litre. Transport fares rise by over 200%. Transporters lament impact on business. Nigeria becoming failed state, coming from Pengasa, and detail found on page 20. And on fake certificate, Uganda, Kenya, right jam demands student verification. On fake certificate, Uganda, Kenya, right the jam demands student verification. Detail found on page 9. Federal government finally criminalized vandalism of telecom facility in New Gazette. You can find that on page 26. And then we have a column from Olufasan where he said Nigeria made Dangote a colossal, it must now handle him wisely. And on sport, we're seeing the sport minister dangles 24 million naira cash reward for gold medalists. You can find detail of that inside the paper. We have a picture story at the Democratic Convention in US where we can see Chris, the special advisor on Africa to the US president, former vice president of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and Mr. Peter will be at the National Democratic Institute's International Leaders Forum Democratic Convention in Chicago, USA yesterday. And that's all of Vanguard newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, withdraw invitation to Ajero, opposition lawmakers tell police. Says allegation unbelievable, recipe for crisis. Don't silence labor leaders, Sisla caution police. $500 million domestic bond investors' rights to assets funds protected under law. Businesses, entrepreneurs suffer from increasing cost of doing business. Crude oil drilling exploration in the north fully on course. I'm not part of League of Northern Democrats, says Yakasai. Pioneer ICPC Chairman Justice Ayaola dies at 90. The big story on the paper, Rivers crisis, Damogun opens up on controversial letter to appeal court. Replies Clark says those asking him to resign are undermining party's neck as main opposition inaugurates reconciliation and disciplinary committees. I won't leave PDP, I will stay and fight, a statement from Wike. You can find all the details on page 3. Nigeria needs new mapping to address insecurity. Alleged drug purchase scandal, Kwankwaso Algon chairman, permanent secretary arrested. Enugu government demolishes kidnappers den, says more to go down. Non-release of new minimum wage, consequential adjustment causing anxiety. Statement from Labour, we have done our part. The finance ministry is saying so. We are working on implementation. Coming from the Wages Commission, payment of 70,000 naira will cause job losses. Organized private sector wants federal government to announce pledge support. 7 more states ready to pay 70,000 naira. All details can be found on page 11, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
This anxiety is getting, by the day. I mean, it's increasing the anxiety. I mean, workers were expecting that this payment would take effect from August, but it's obvious it's not going to take, because we're seeing that very few governors have actually announced their commitment. Presently, we only have Lagos and Edo State that are paying that money, and then here we're seeing that seven more states are ready to pay that. We clearly remember where Governor of Gombe said he can pay that. Governor of Nasarawa as well said that the money is too high, he can pay that. And then the rest are yet to even set up a committee to look into making sure that this new minimum wage is being implemented as soon as possible. So the anxiety, I really do not know when we'll start paying this money as a country. Maybe till next year, I don't know. But we are hoping, according to Labour, they should be able to round up whatever meeting they are having concerning the minimum wage by the end of August, so that by September, civil service especially will know what it is. But then for the private sector, I really do not know when they will start their own payment. But we'll keep our fingers crossed and just hope that the anxiety do not kill Nigerians before they get their money eventually.
I think the private sector somehow sounds like a joke, because you're expecting the government to announce a pledge of support, the same government that is also complaining about not even sure of how possible or the long run, and seeing that they need a supplementary budget for the minimum wage and all of that. And then you want, now the private sector is just directly pointing back at the federal government: if you do not pledge support, we are not going to implement the minimum wage, and it's your fault. I think that's the game the private sector is trying to play here. But regardless, I think if everybody sat down and made an agreement according to how the committee was, and came to a standpoint and said, you know what, this is what, we would have been in a better position, because now it's everybody. But we saw how everything played out, and the end, this was what was announced. As a matter of fact, is what was announced. I don't think that tripartite committee played any important role in the end of the day in determining what was the minimum wage. And now here we are, and the private sector saying that they cannot. I'm always concerned about them, because that is where more exploitation happens. That is, there are no much benefits as compared to the federal government. There are no compensations, there are no rewards, there are no bonuses. There's so much exploitation going to the private sector, just juicing out workers, and for you to sit down there and say you cannot pay this minimum wage, it worries me. But you are out there counting your profits every single day, and all of that, all on the sweat of these people that are able to make it for you. And I know this cut across small scale enterprises, but regardless, we know that the representative of the private sectors are not those MSME. It is the bigger companies out there. And for you to say you cannot afford, I think it's a slap to capitalization in this country. And to some extent, the government have allowed it to thrive, and that is why now it is a game of, if you don't pledge support, we will not be able to pay, and if you are not able to pay, it's because you did not pledge the support and all of that. So but then it's sad seeing that people's excitement is just going back. They just have to swallow it. Is now whenever it might be. So it's still 30,000 regardless of what the law is concerning minimum wage as it is now. 7 states is not good enough out of 36. We still have a long way to go, and with the current economic situation, I don't think anybody that is not earning up to that is finding it easy.
Can't survive.
Honestly. They are not surviving, obviously. We are just moving as the day goes
by. Because people are just trying to live. Nobody's surviving. Let's just see if I can see the next day regardless. I mean, it's quite sad. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed concerning that. All right, we'll take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Sun newspaper, where we have Enugu demolishes kidnappers' houses, with the Rider Security Agency killed 27 suspected abductors. Security Agency killed 27 suspected abductors. Detail found on page 4. Wiki DS PDP, I'm ready for war, with the Rider brands Wabara unfit for Board of Trustee chair post. I can't be intimidated, says party acting national chairman. You can find that on page 6. And as well, we have the ESUT sacked 6 senior staff for forgery and corruption. May hand the suspect to EFCC and ICPC. Detail found on page 4. We have the Nigerian Air Force airstrike killed 5 terrorist commanders, 35 fighters in Borno State. This is a report coming from an official. We have the FCT authority dismantle Pack and Pay, condemns 80% and 20% consultant versus federal government sharing formula. Detail found on page 26. Nigeria, US partner on AI for military operations, which we see they have been trying to say that, especially when we had that bomb, the bomb blast that killed some people in Kaduna, where we say we had AI, we'll be able to know that, talking about artificial intelligence. As well, federal government needs $100 billion yearly to achieve GDP of over $33,000, says Bangudu. Detail found on page 25. Ondo women protest over hardship. You can find that on page 6. ASU insists on strike, warned the federal government. Stakeholders about disruption of academic calendar. You can read that on page 27. Ozodinma backs Michael Okpara Good Governance Award, gets accolades. You can find that on page 6. And we have the picture story still showing us the 3 prominent leaders that attended the convention in Chicago, where we have the former vice president, we have the 2023 presidential candidate Peter Obi, and as well we also have one other person, Chris, at the National Democratic Institute. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
So that before we move to the next paper, I just hope that the writer concerning under Enugu Demiloshi's kidnappers' houses is not true, because it says security agents killed 27 suspected abductors. How would you kill 27 suspects? It sounds very terrible. It might sound like a good news, but it is bad, because these are suspects. If they are suspected, then you can't kill suspects until otherwise, except if you are sure that these are abductors, because it means now that in these 27 there might be innocent people in them. So I hope for some reason that this writer is not correct in some ways, because if you kill 27 suspected abductors, then this is a wrong operation. This is an operation gone wrong, because you can't kill suspects until you are sure that that person is guilty of it. It's regardless of whatever the operation is. If they are suspects, they are suspects until you're sure that they are abductors before you can do otherwise. So I just hope that we will get more insight concerning whether they were suspects or truly the abductors. On Nigerian News Direct, contractors mobilized back on site as Abiodun flags off Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway reconstruction. NAFDAC seizes petrol tankers used for vegetable oil transport in Lagos. NGX ASI dips by 0.07% amid 599 billion naira market cap surge. PDP calls for ceasefire between Fubara, Wike, fears losing Rivers to APC. Fidelity Bank challenges NDPC's 555.8 million naira fine over alleged data privacy breach. Details can be found on page 23. The big story on the paper: controversy trails OVH acquisition of NNPC Retail as Atiku accuses Tinubu of abuse of office. $70 million arbitration award. Chinese firm puts up federal government buildings in UK for sale. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper, where we are seeing echoes of cabinet reshuffled trails ministers' performance a year after. And we can see picture story trying to tell us what's going to happen, talking about building the nation and if the ministers have actually helped the president to achieve his Renew Hope agenda for the country. So we hope to see what's happening concerning education, our security, power, oil and gas, our health sector, the economy, corruption, as well as so many things. We're seeing here we're having rodents eating up the whole thing. So that is to tell you a number of things need to be done to fix the economy of Nigeria, no matter what it will take. More detail found in the paper. Expert urge diplomacy as Chinese firm lists country's asset for sale. Nigeria to begin revocation of dormant oil well licensing. Wike Damagum defends standpoint as PDP Rivers crisis feaster. Tough times ahead as subsidy shelves 7.7 trillion naira of fake allocation. You can find out on page 15. Stakeholders set agenda for Kekere Eku, the new Chief Justice of Nigeria. And we have Aramba B alleges plot by Ajero to spark civil unrest. Tinubu has mortgaged Nigerians' future to family, friends, says Atiku. That you can find on page 2, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, disband Edo Security Network. Now APC campaign spokesman Afebwa tells IGP chides politicians blackmailing police for carrying out their duty. The big story on sparring, Wike takes on Fubara, Wabara and Clark. Says it's fight to the finish, no reconciliation with Fubara. Declares Wabara unfit to serve as PDP Board of Trustee Chairman. Tells Ijo elder statesman Clark, you are not PDP member. Allow Fubara to face the crisis. Vows to remain in PDP to fight battles. Don't silence NLC. Ajero's probe should be transparent, Sislak tells police. NNPC repays 60% of loan obtained to acquire stake in Dangote refinery. Aviation workers reject federal government's 20% deduction in agencies' revenue, says sector in coma. How over 1,400 protesters are languishing in police custody. Security forces killed 27 kidnappers, IPOP members in Enugu. Tinubu has mortgaged Nigeria's future to family and friends, statement from Atiku. Kano anti-graft agencies blocks 160 million naira to Green Concoso's nephew today. Arrest Algon Chair, permanent secretary, and others. SPCOBA congratulate Osoba-elect Professor Azinge. Death toll in Bauchi flood disaster now 18. On PDP crisis, if I open my mouth, it won't be pleasant, Damagun warns. Emir of Kanu Sanusi backs PhD. And that's all the news on Daily News Hub.
On First News newspaper, data privacy regulator fines Fidelity Bank 555 million naira. Aviation industry on brink, workers protest 20% revenue cut. British Army expand recruitment opportunities to Nigerians and Commonwealth citizens. So for those who want to join the British Army, you're welcome. You just have to look at what you can meet the criteria for that recruitment. Data found inside the paper. Prices of Gari, tomatoes and others drop in Anambra, Ibuyi and Enugu. This is a survey that was taken. NCC direct telcos to block stolen SIM cards within 5 minutes of reporting. We saw that since yesterday on some of our papers. Deafening speculation, I'm not joining APC, will remain in PDP, fighting battles, a report coming from Wike. Drop baseless charges against the NLC boss, focus on insecurity, Ugochinyere tells the police. Bandits make good on threats, kill Sokoto monarch days after video plead. As well, Atiku is saying Tinubu mortgaging Nigerians' future to family and friends. And we can see the picture story here where we see the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, extending a warm greeting to the ex-vice president Atiku Abubakar when he accompanied the family of Kashim Imam to seek the hand of Atiku's daughter, Hafsat Atiku Abubakar, in marriage at the former vice president resident in Asokoro, Abuja yesterday. And that's all on First News newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, supporting local refineries will reduce dependency on importation, stimulate economic growth, coming from Lakpobiri. You can start with the details on the front page. Bayern Munich Manuel Neuer retires from international football. Ajero's terrorism financing allegation, TUC Sislak Kig, don't be used as tool to silence labor, Sislak tells police. Federal government increases passport fees to 50,000 naira and 100,000 naira respectively, gives reason. NNPC Limited generates 12.02 trillion naira, 2.04 trillion naira in Nigeria, Panama in 2023. The big story on the paper: amid fresh crisis, PDP inaugurates reconciliation and disciplinary committees. I can't be intimidated into resigning. Acting Chair Damokun Ross says there was a precedent in letter to appeal court. I don't run from a fight. I won't leave PDP. Wike turns clerk. Within share funds forfeited by Emefiele and associates, coming from EFCC. Anti-corruption agency arrests Konkoso, orders for alleged fraud. 1 year in office, Wike declares park and pay scheme illegal. And also an entertainment concerning season 9 of Big Brother Nigeria. Thatcher stand with Wani X handy. And a picture story: empowering artisans and traders, where we can see the Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun and beneficiaries of a 500 million naira soft loan scheme for artisans and traders across Ogun State. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
Well, before we continue further with the paper review, we'd love to take a time out just to let you go through the stories, drop your comment on any of the story that is quite appealing to you. And when we come back, we'll continue the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
The gospel of Jesus Christ is our Heavenly Father's plan for the happiness and salvation of His children. Equa Television International shares the gospel of Jesus Christ because the world must come to the realization of the power in the atonement of sin through the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ. Sharing with the world the message of hope that can clean anyone from sin to enjoy the peace that is in Him. Equa Television International is live 24/7, preaching the message of salvation and truth to the world. Pray for Equa TV. Support Equa TV. Be part of Equa TV. Keep watching Equa Television International.
Just tuning in, it's the Dailies on Equa Television. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper. We're seeing the allegation coming from Atiku saying that the president have mortgaged Nigeria to family and friends. As well, we're seeing that the federal government have also increased the fee for international passport. So for those who are intending to get it, you should be aware that the fee has been increased, as well as we're seeing what the Enugu state government is doing concerning clearing of criminals, kidnappers, IPOB, and many others who have been causing unrest in that state. So we have a number of stories on the paper. We'd love to hear from you. Also, we're seeing 1 year after, how are Tinubu ministers doing in office? I mean, this is a point of concern as well to Nigerians. How is the educational sector? How is the health? How is so many of our sectors doing after 1 year under the leadership of this minister? Will they still be retaining their seat? This is a question that Nigerians will hope to have an answer, hopefully from the president. So do well to drop your own views concerning that. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Celia.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is New Telegraph newspaper. Coming from the CBN, firms expect borrowing rate to maintain uptrend to 2025. You can find detail of that inside the paper. Federal government hinges aviation sector survival on thriving airports. You can find that as well on page 7. As well, we're seeing that Obitu Tinubu tell Nigerians the age and cost of presidential jets. We saw that it said it's not a brand new one, that it has been used. We're the third in the country to use it. So You see he's asking that they should tell Nigerians how old the plane is as much as how much it costs. Leave the NLC president alone, go after bandits and oil thief, coming from Ogochinyere telling the police. And we have competent North tribe will decide the winner of Edo Gubapo, coming from Akbata, detail found on page 9. The big story on seized aircraft, French court lacks the jurisdiction over the matter, coming from Sagi, as one sovereign can't preside in judgment over another, says Nigeria being kicked about like football globally. Chinese coy action insulting. Urges the federal government to stop guaranteeing sub-nationals as state not reliable. Chinese firms can attach assets belonging to Nigeria in judgment debt, coming from Adebayo. You can find that on page 2 and 11. Still a New Telegraph newspaper. Police launched rescue operation for abducted medical students, where we can see federal government using obsolete mapping to tackle insecurity surveillance. Detail found on page 4 and 29. Still a New Telegraph newspaper. Japanese woman 116 to be named world's oldest person. We're seeing that the oldest person, who was 117, just died, and here we're seeing that the new oldest person is a Japanese woman who is 116. So you can read detail of that on page 4. Report coming from UNICEF is saying that nutrition supplements stolen replaced with stones. Detail found on page 29. I think we should talk about that, Rachel. I think this is the third paper or so where we're seeing the issue of supplement meant for children are not being given to them. And we've seen UNICEF complaining about the fact that stunted growth has been recorded, especially in northern Nigeria, because of poverty, malnutrition, and all of that. Now, we're seeing New Telegraph telling us that, in fact, the supplements are being replaced with stones. And I just can't help but make sense out of it. Where did we come about this? Where or what the question will be, how did we get it wrong to the point whereby supplements are being replaced with stones? Something that is meant for children is not even being given to them, and then it's being sold possibly maybe at a high price or something like that.
No, usually UNICEF works with the government or NGOs that are into things like that. But I think this specifically, we know who we can point fingers at and say, how did the government allow this? It means someone sat down and allowed for these supplements to be replaced. I think this is not a difficult one to solve.
True.
Who is in charge of this department receiving this and making sure it's being disbursed and students are able, children are able to get it in the primary health care and in the government-owned hospitals in Sokoto State and all of that. So it's obviously that someone is making money out of this and seeing no need for the children, vulnerable children that are malnourished and threatened with all kinds of illnesses, to be able to have access to this. It is a sad one, and this is UNICEF crying out for help, saying we are sending aid and support to Sokoto State, and the children are not having it because it's been diverted by the people who are responsible of making sure this thing is being heard. So I just hope that the state government steps in. The governor from the top should step in and make sure that this nonsense stops immediately.
And this is just in Sokoto, so we can't really tell what is happening in other places where UNICEF have been supporting. And this just tells us that we are not reliable. This is really an ugly one. We're not presenting ourselves like a reliable country international. We hope something is being done as soon as possible. Few other stories on the front page still. We have PDP crisis. I can't be intimidated. No one can pressure me to resign. This is coming from Damakum. Describe Clark's criticism as sentimental. I will remain in PDP to fight on Wiki. Says you can find that on page 2 and 4. Federal government ramps up food production to keep inflation at the lowest. Expert warns of prolonged food crisis profile solution. Downside, we have a study that says exposure to particles increases risks of chronic I take that again. The study here is saying exposure to particles increases risks of chronic kidney diseases. So we've been talking about the issue of particles, plastic especially, how that can affect the kidney. So you can do well to read that on page 26, and that's all in New Telegraph newspaper.
On the Nation newspapers, came to eliminate trade bottlenecks rolls out. 220 illegal refineries found in 1 week, vandalized pipelines also. While airports are performing below capacity by FAN, Minister, our plans for National Youth Dialogue. Why appeal court dismisses Edo Assembly's appeal against Shaibu's reinstatement. The big story on the paper, fresh inflow triples foreign investors' portfolios to 598 billion naira. Total transactions at the NGX rose from 2.15 trillion naira to 3.1 trillion naira in 1 year. Passport fees rise to 100,000 naira and 50,000 naira. Applicants abroad not affected. Plot to remove Damagun deepens PDP crisis. Wike tackles Clark, vows to remain in party. Students, others excited by loans disbursement. AFCC, ICPC won on procurement breach. Details can be found on page 3, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Edo launches single window project to boost trade and economic growth. And we have FRS and SIA designated as implementing agency. Also, we have coming from Damagum, I'm contemplating vying for presidency because I'm becoming so popular. We have some writers on there. You can do well to read that as well. Coming from the Nigerian Security Advisor, terrorism has left profound and painful mark on Nigeria. Insists war against terror can't be fought alone. See global collaboration. We have other writers as well. We have few picture stories still showing us the visit to Matiko's family seeking for his daughter's hand in marriage. You can do well to get the paper in detail, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the chosen one. Fans choose Bernard over Anderson for Eagles job, where we can see the statistics where 14% want an indigenous coach, 19% want Anderson, and then 67% want Bernard. I mean, looking at his track record, I think everybody would want Bernard as the Super Eagles coach. AFCON qualifiers, Eagles open training camp September 1st. I'm Lukman fan, a statement from Bellingham. Offensive gesture, Boniface ban fined 25,000 euros. PFA Player Award thrills Foden. Bakole wants Joshua in African showdown. Chelsea return exited Felix. United happy to seal Eriksen for £5 million. Garcia Merino agreed to join Arsenal. Toriola backs MTN champs to produce next Olympics medalists. Under 18 World Champs, Nigeria faced Chinese Taipei in placement match. Under 20 WWC, Falconers set for Australia friendly. And that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
On Business Day newspaper, Nigerian rusting FX market struggles to climb. Detail found on the front page, and on page 31, countdown to Port Harcourt refinery opening, 10 days to go. Cargo piles as aircraft shortage delayed delivery. As well, demand for PTA school fees fuel dollar scarcity in parallel market. Telecoms cable vandals face jail term in the new law. Dollar bond Edu assure investors of asset safety. Detail found in the paper, and that's all in Business Day newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, Foden, Palmer take top prizes. Sterling banned from Chelsea squad. Milan confirms Morata muscular injury. Man City welcomes Gundogan transfer with Barca. Details can be found inside the paper. Neymar wants to return to Barca at any cost. CR7 girlfriend to receive huge monthly payments if they split. Neo announces international retirement. The big story on the paper, Boniface banned and fined 43.8 million naira. Super Eagles open training camp September 1st. Details can be found on page 6. Udinese loses Sanchez to worrying injury. AC Milan demands 120 million euros from Barca for Leo. Details can be found inside the paper. Dybala agrees to 75 million euros contract with Al Qatar. You can find details inside the paper. Lookman remains with Atlanta as PSG links cool off. Moses Simon happy to be back from injury. Adesanya earns 1.2 billion naira for defeat to Duplessis. And Cena doping case not finished yet as Wada Ado may appeal. Details at the back page. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sele.
As well, thank you to our viewers, thank you to our supporters, and thank you to every member of the production crew for making this program a success. Till we come again tomorrow, please do have a lovely day ahead.